It represents the phase in the intellectual history of Europe, but it also serves to define programs of such the influential literati inspired by a conflict between a possibility of a better world, and there are also what they call criticisms and proposal for action. So keywords here for the age or the age of rationalism would be history, criticism, writers began to be critical with what we call with issues around them. And there is what we call the principle of pragmatism meaning being practical, and that there were what they call philosophies presented. So I am now what they call giving the floor to the group to start the presentation. Miss Arangoso.
A pleasant morning to everyone. So we are Group 4 and today we'll be presenting to you the following topics together with the reporters respectively. Next na yan. Okay, topics. For Bacon of Studies on Milton and his blindness, I am the presenter. And for the Goth from Faust, Prologue in Heaven, the topic presenters are Syra Glaze Mante, Miss Kyla May Maravilla, and Justin Aquila. For, for God Sees the Truth But Waits but by Tolstoy, the topic presenters are Miss Sherilyn Mahosay and Fiana Martelino. For An Enemy of the People, Act 5, the topic presenter is Miss Jenny Malingin and Miss Rhea May Orculio. Okay, for the Chekhov of Father, the topic presenter will be Miss April Joy Makiring. For Bjornson the Father, topic presenter would be Miss Zilovia Magtulis. And for The War by Prandelio, the topic presenter would be Miss April Joy Makiring and Fiana Martelino. Starting for the Off Studies by Mr. Francis Bacon. So, Bacon of Studies, author's background. Francis Bacon, first Viscount St. Albans, also known as Lord Verulam, was an English philosopher and statesman who served as Attorney General and as Lord Chancellor of England. His philosophical work was more valuable. Bacon took up Aristotelian concepts, arguing for the scientific method, an empirical inductive approach that is the cornerstone of modern scientific research. Background of the work. The Essay of Studies by Sir Francis Bacon is the first essay in a series of 10 essays published in 1957. So apparently, the Of Studies is just one of those composed essays or literary works of Sir Francis Bacon. Later, it was revised in 1612 with the addition of some more sentences and ideas in it, along with the alteration in some vocabulary terms. This essay is regarded as Bacon's masterpiece, enriched with stylized Latin vocabulary, fresh and new ideas, logical and relevant themes, and wisdom of the world. Lines from the essay. So the first line, studies serve for delight, for ornament, and for ability. So apparently, Sir Bacon asserts that studying is useful, especially in three aspects. First, it gives us delight or pleasure. When we feel alone or at no company at all, a book can act as our mate and can give us a pleasant company. Secondly, a book has a decorative value. From book, a man gets enough of materials like illustrations or quotations and etc., with which he decorates himself. With these materials, he embellishes his conversations with others. Thus, study has a decorative value. In short, in short terms, studies improve our use of language. Thirdly, study of books increases one's practical ability. It enables us to develop ability like making correct judgments on our daily affairs, and it teaches us to manage them well. It improves our judgment and efficiency in planning and, executing the practical matters such as decision making. Also, for the next line, to spend too much time in studies is sloth. To use them too much for ornament is affectation. To make judgment wholly by the rules is the humor of a scholar. So when we spend too much time in studying, it will make us sloth. Why? Because there can be instances that we avoid other things for the sake of studying. Thus, studying too much leads to laziness. And if a man study and if a man studies solely to demonstrate how articulate he is engaging in affection or showing off. Affection, in Bacon's opinion, is not only a waste of time, but also a moral flaw, because a well-rounded man would never need to brag. His last and most serious danger is that if all one does is study with no real-world experience to guide his thinking, the result is what we now refer to as a person who is book smart but not street smart. So, and to define things based purely by what one learns in books is humorous or stupid. Sometimes people judge things according to what they have read, but life doesn't always depend on laws or theories or rules. We can consider them, but life also depends on our own experiences. So, in other words, study without the added knowledge that can only come from actual experience is useless, especially to the minds of businessmen. Next, for the third line, crafty men contemn studies, simple men admire them, and wise men use them. For they teach not their own use, but that is a wisdom without them, and above them, won by observation. Men who are hard workers or who are primitive men despise or hate study. Men with simple brains, on the other hand, admire them. And furthermore, wise persons put them into practice. Studies do not instruct on how to use them. It is a person's intelligence that teaches him how to use them. Bacon believes that a man should not read to disagree and confute others. He should not believe and rely just on words, nor should he read to discover a topic of conversation to discuss. Rather, he should read to weigh and apply them. For the fourth line, some books are to be tasted, others to be swallowed, and some few to be chewed and digested. That is, some books are to be read only in parts, others to be read but not curiously, and some few to be read wholly and with diligence and attention. So there are some books that are to be read only in parts because they are somehow useful for a person only at some places. It is not worthy to read them word by word. On contrary, there are some books that are also that are to be read not with curiosity, and some are to be read completely with attention of the reader. For the last, for the fifth line, reading makes a full man, conference a ready man, and writing an exact man. So Bacon addresses the effects of reading, conversing, and writing. Reading creates a well-rounded man, and conversation makes a man think quickly. And writing, by which Sir Bacon meant as essay writing, makes a man capable of thinking with logic and reason. Next na yan. Okay, for the general idea of the essay, Bacon's essay of studies deals with the benefits of studies for the individuals in their daily lives. From reading books to writing papers, study plays a vital role in a man's life, making him learned, witty, and experienced. The essay was enriched with intellectual wisdom, pragmatic approach, and practical knowledge. Therefore, it is considered to be the most beneficial essay for the students and young individuals. Although the essay is devoid of any emotions and colorful expressions, it is, nevertheless, a wonderful effort of teaching the readers about the importance of studying. On His Blindness by Sir John Milton. Author's background. John Milton. John Milton was an English poet and intellectual. who served as a civil servant for the Commonwealth of England under its Council of State and later under Oliver Cromwell. He wrote at a time of religious flux and political upheaval and is best known for his epic poem Paradise Lost during 1667. Milton, on his blindness, background of the work. On his blindness is a poem in which Milton reflects on his faith as he is turning blind. On his blindness centers on Milton's faith in God as he is losing his sight. The poem is a sonnet that uses figurative language to express Milton's fear, frustration, and acceptance. Milton struggles in this poem with frustration at becoming blind and with his own sense of how important it is to use one's talents well in God's service. The poem records how he comes to understand a higher notion of service. Real service is doing the will of God, even if it means he must stand and wait. Reading of the poem. When I consider how my light is spent, ere half my days in this dark world and wide, and that one talent which is death to hide, lodged with me useless, though my soul more bent, to serve there with my Maker, and present my true account, lest he return chide. Doth God exact day labor, light denied? I fondly ask, but patience to prevent, that murmurs soon replies, God doth not need either man's work or his own gifts. Who best bear his mild yoke, they serve him best. His state is kingly, thousands at his bidding speed, and post o'er land and ocean without rest. They also serve, who only stand and wait. For the dramatic situation, number one, first question is, who is speaking? So the speaker of the poem is the author itself, Sir John Milton. Second question, to whom is the speaker speaking? The speaker is speaking towards the Almighty God about his condition. What is the situation? Milton's faith in God when he loses his sight is the focus on his blindness. The poem is a sonnet in which Milton expresses his dread, irritation, and acceptance using figurative language. The poem marks a turning point in Milton's life as he moves from fear of punishment to realization. What is the speaker's tone? The speaker's tone is a progression from doubt and frustration to humbleness. What does every stanza or line convey? For the lines 1 to 2, when I consider how my light is spent, ere half my days in this dark world and wide, the poet claims in these words that the light has fled his eyes even before half his life has passed. That is, just as he is approaching his middle age. Lines 3 to 6. And that one talent which is death to hide, lodged with me useless, though my soul more bent, to serve there with my Maker and present my true account, lest he return chide. The poet claims in these words that God has given him the gift of lyrical writing, and that if he does not use it to produce anything worthwhile, he deserves to die. His talent, however, has been rendered useless due to his lack of vision. Despite this, he aspires to use his talent to serve God. He is composing this sonnet on his blindness because he wants to share the genuine tale of his life through poetry. He's composing this poet so that God doesn't become upset with him and think he's squandering the gift he's been given. Lines 7 to 11. Doth God exact day labor, light denied? I fondly ask. But patience to prevent that murmur soon replies. Who either man's work or his own gift, who best bear his mild yoke, they serve him best. The poet is prompted to ask God a direct query in these verses. He asks God if he would be cruel enough to demand something productive from a blind man in exchange for giving him the talent that has allowed him to make a living so far. The poet, on the other hand, is a patient guy by nature, and this aspect of his personality prevents him from asking God the above mentioned question. God does not ask for anything from a man according to his patience. He does not expect anyone to repay his gifts, nor does he expect everyone to use them. Lines 12 to 14. Is kingly, thousands at his bidding speed, and foes o'er land and ocean without rest. They also serve who only stand and wait. His patience informs him that God is like a monarch with numerous countries under his control and a plethora of subjects who must obey his commands. Thousands of men on earth execute God's every command to the letter, rushing across nations and seas without pausing to complete their responsibilities that have been assigned to them. These are not, however, the only ones who serve God. Others simply stand by and wait for God to decide how their lives will unfold. Their only service to God is to accept whatever challenges God sends their way and to face them with courage and perseverance. So, the imagery used in the poem are the following: to serve there with my Maker and present, bear his mild joke, they serve him best, and they also serve who only stand and wait. For the denotation connotation, so as we know, denotation refers to the word that we find in the dictionary explicit meaning, while connotation refers to the emotional suggestion of a word or that is not literally presented. So in the poem, the following words are used. First one, bent. Means sharply curved or having an angle. Its connotation is the determination to do or have. For the second word, maker, its denotation is a person or thing that makes or produces something. However, in the poem, its connotation is it means as the God or the creator. Yoke. A yoke is a wooden crosspiece that is fastened over the necks of two animals and attached to the plow or cart that they are to pull. So in the poem, it means an image for God's will. Light. Light means the natural agent that stimulates sight and makes things visible. In the poem, it represents the life of the speaker before he became blind. Abstract words used in the poem are patience and talent. Kinds of language. Assonance. Assonance is the repetition of vowel sounds in the same line, such as the sound of E and O in that murmur sound replies, God doth not need, and again of the sound E and post o'er land and ocean without rest. Allusion. Allusion is a belief and an indirect reference of a person, place, thing, or idea of a historical, cultural, political, or literary significance. The writer alludes to the parable of talents in the third line, such as, and that one talent which is death to hide. Imagery. Imagery is used to make readers perceive things involving their five senses. John Milton has used imagery in this poem, such as, to serve therewith my Maker and present. Bear his mild joke, they serve him best, and they also serve who only stand and wait. Metaphor. It is a figure of speech in which an implied comparison is made between the objects that are different. The poem shows the use of the extended metaphors of God's obedience throughout the poem, such as, to serve therewith my Maker and present my true account, lest he return chide. Personification. Personification is to give human qualities to inanimate objects. The poet has personified patience in the eighth line of the poem, such as, I fondly ask, but patience to prevent, that murmurs soon replies. Pun. Puns involve words with similar or identical sounds, but with different meanings. The writer has used this device in the opening line of the poem, where light refers to his eyesight as well as his life before getting blind, such as, when I consider how my light is spent. The general idea of the poem. John Milton's poem on his blindness reflects the tragedy and frustration of the author's eyesight impairment and the ensuing battle with losing and eventually restoring his faith. That's it for the honest blindness. I would like to pass the microphone to the next presenter.
Ante. Saira. Madungog ko?
Yes, Ira.
Gotha. From Falls Prolonged in Heaven. Author's background: Johann Wolfgang von Goethe, born on August 28, 1749, Frankfurt am Main, Germany. Died on March 22, 1832. German poet, playwright, novelist, scientist, statesman, theater director, critic, and amateur artist, considered the greatest German literary figure of the modern era. Goethe is the only German literary figure whose range and international standing equal those of Germany's supreme philosophers. Next slide, please. Background of the work: Faust is a two-part dramatic work by Johann Wolfgang Goethe. Part 1 was published in 1808 and Part 2 in 1832, after the author's death. The supreme work of Goethe's later years, Faust is sometimes considered Germany's greatest contribution in world literature. Part 1 sets out the magician Faust's despair, his pact with Mephistopheles, and his love for Gretchen. Part 2 covers Faust's life at court, the wooing and winning of Helen of Troy, and his purification of salvation. Next slide. So in character web, Faust is the main character. Then his lover is Gretchen or Margaret. And Martha is Gretchen's younger sibling. Faust is a friend of Wagner and a student. The Lord and Mephistopheles has a dealt in which kanang exchange sa soul ni Faust if makuan ilahang bet, then which the in Faust's friend is also the witch who made the potion for Gretchen, and which master is Mephistopheles. Next, character analysis. Mephistopheles is the play's antagonist. He plays both the parts of Temper and the Devil, which as the court of jester and comedian. Mephistopheles makes a deal with the Lord to tempt Faust, and Faust wagers that Mephistopheles will not be able to show him an eternal moment. Then the Lord appears in the prolonged in heaven, which makes the deal with Mephistopheles for Faust's soul and allows the devil to tempt Faust in order to prove that he will remain faithful to God. Next, Faust is the play's protagonist. He is an alchemist falls into despair because he feels as tough as he has exhausted the limits of his knowledge. He is also the lover of Gretchen. Faust makes a wager with the devil Mephistopheles and soon finds his eternal moment of his love for a young girl Gretchen. Faust's relationship ends with tragedy with Gretchen killing their child and falling into madness. Faust becomes damned never to experience the true knowledge of love that he seeks. Wagner is Faust's companion in the third first third of the play. Winner is a scholar who sees no reason to venture or outside of books, learning into realms and natural and spiritual as false desires. Next, Gretchen is a peasant girl with whom falls madly in love with him. Gretchen represents the religious and moral society of common German life against which Faust is compared. Their relationship is destined for tragedy from the start as Faust tempts Gretchen away from her moral life. And after sa kaning first 10 chapters, Gretchen commits infanticide for which she goes to prison and executed for her crimes. Since iya man gi abort iyahang gipatay iyang baby. Martha is Gretchen's neighbor who provides the means by which Mephistopheles is able to concoct Faust and Gretchen's love affair. Mephistopheles weaves a lie about the death of Martha's husband in order to bring the two together, and Martha facilitates Gretchen's fantasies of love with Faust. Next slide. Valentin is Gretchen's brother and soldier returning home from war. He receives word of his sister's sexual indiscretion, and when he meets Faust, they fight. His blasphemy represents the violent fissure of the modern society from the religious and social spheres of Christendom. The student next is student. The student appears in Faust's study to learn under Faust's lesson. The student shows how easily one can be tempted away from the dull life of academics with learning. The witch appears in cavern, brewing a potion that initiates Faust's burning passion for Gretchen. Next. Plot. Sa first chapters in the exposition, the townspeople gather around Faust, cheering him on because he and his father helped the people with medicine during pandemic when he was young. Faust is with Weiner, the fellow scholar, when they walk outside the town. Faust reads the Gospel of John in his study, hoping to find new inspiration. He begins his own interpretation of the book, but it is interrupted by a barking dog. The dog soon transforms into Mephistopheles, which is the devil. Faust and Mephistopheles start talking about Faust's work and his disappointment in his current condition. To show his power to Faust, Mephistopheles summons a group of spirits that take him on a hallucinatory journey when he sleeps. So, Mephistopheles or the devil promised that he will show Faust more more adventure or his works. Next. Faust and Devil visits a witch lair where they come across two apes preparing a potion in a pot. When the witch returns, she did not recognize the devil at first, but then she quickly realized that he is her master. Mephistopheles forces the witch to give Faust a slight amount of potion, which Faust drinks. Then, in in the street, Faust meets a young girl and falls in love with her right away, then followed her to her room and immediately escaped when Gretchen returns. but Mephistopheles leaves a box of jewels behind. So next morning, Gretchen found the jewels that Mephistopheles left. Then Gretchen goes to Martha to express her disappointment to their mother's behavior. When they open the door, they find Mephistopheles disguised as travelers. He invented that Martha's husband died in a long journey. Next slide. In Rising Action. In Dilemma. Gretchen and Faust meet for the first time that evening in Martha's garden. Faust seduces and courts her. Martha and Mephistopheles also interact, with the devil playing a clever game of seduction with her. Gretchen plays a game, he loves me and he loves me not. With a flower, Faust affirms his love for her. She lands on the phrase he loves me and rushes to her room. Fearing these feelings will corrupt the girl, Faust visits Gretchen again. One night in her room, they talk about his religious beliefs and consummate their romance. And when Faust persuades her to let him give her mother a sleeping potion, Gretchen soon discovers that she is pregnant. Next slide. Next reporter na. Okay, after ato nga chapter is nagkuan na siya na murag nag-goal na siya since
Madunggan na ba ko,
next
guys?
reporter.
I am audible.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, you are audible.
So I am a center part the styles of the author and cultural implication. The styles of the author, of view. The point of view used in Faust by Johann Wolfgang von Goethe is third-person omniscient. This is particularly accurate when setting and religious views and discourse are of great importance to the story. Conflict, man versus God, man versus man versus self. Next. Cultural implication. Dissatisfaction and frustrated striving will lead you nowhere. Impulsive decision, human's imperfection, God may arise out of evil, perceive the difference between good and evil. Next. So I'm gonna pass to the next reporter.
Good morning, everyone. Am I audible?
Yes, you are
Yes.
audible.
Yes, you
So,
are.
I'm Justine. Okay. I'm Justine Aquila. I'm here today to talk to you about the symbols, theme, and the implication of the title of Faust play. These are the symbols that can be seen in this play. Wagner's laboratory, full of books and lab equipment that represent Faust's scholarship, which Faust leave behind along the way of the play to obtain a new experience. Second is blood. It represents Faust's tragic contract with the devil, which in this scene of the play, Mephistopheles appear in Faust's study and make a contract that he would be Faust's slave in earth, helping Faust experience live life to the fullest, and if ever Faust would be satisfied, he would die immediately and become slaves of Mephistopheles in hell. Third is nature. It represents freedom and redemption at first, but as Faust realized, nature also represents the hell also floor. Next is imprisonment. Well, there are several imprisonment presented in this play, including to that is Gretchen's literal imprisonment as a result of killing her baby. And there are also figurative imprisonment which Faust experienced in his study. And in the part two of this play, Wagner's was seen equally imprisoned in his laboratory, which in this case represent that imprisonment is a state of mind rather than a physical barrier such as walls or bars. Next is Earth Spirit, oversees the physical world's constant change, weaving the living garment of God on the loom of time. Next is Woman. It represents the divine and the good. Next, please. Theme. The main theme of Faust are reason and passion, human desires for meaning and transcendence, pleasure and love, and intellectualism's limit. It also shows the pursuit of knowledge. This play also depicted the theme of sin and redemption, which both Faust and Gretchen experience. They are both sinners and redeemed before their deaths. Next, please. Implication of the title. The play was titled Faust from Prologue in Heaven, which means fortunate, to allude the plot or a central idea. Faust was an erudite, wealthy, and successful man who became dissatisfied with his life, leading him to make a contract with the devil, or also known as Mephistopheles. Mephistopheles will be his slave in earth in order to obtain unlimited knowledge and worldly pleasures, and if ever Faust felt completely satisfied, he would die immediately and become Mephistopheles' slave in hell. However, in the end, Faust goes to heaven because he only loses half the bet. God saves Faust through his constant striving in conjunction with Gretchen's pleadings to God in the form of eternal feminine. That's all. That's all for Gotha from Faust Prologue from Heaven. Now I'm giving the floor to the next presenter, Ms. Mahusay, to discuss to all of you the short story of Tolstoy, God Sees the Truth but Waits.
Good morning. Okay, am I audible?
Yes po.
Yes, you are.
Okay, thank you. So, good morning, everyone. I am Sherilyn Emma Husay, and today the topic that was assigned to me is the story of God Sees the Truth but Waits by Leo Tolstoy. Okay, so author's background. Leo Tolstoy was a Russian in full name of Lev Nikolaevich Graf Tolstoy. He was born on September 9, 1828 at Yasnayana Polyana, Tula province belonged to a well-known noble Russian family. He was the fourth among the five children of Count Nikolai Ilyich Tolstoy and Countess Maria Tolstaya, both of whom died leaving their children to be raised by relatives. On September 23, 1862, Tolstoy married Sofia Andreevna Burst and they had 13 children. He was an author, a master of realistic fiction, and one of the world's greatest novelists. Next slide, please. So, author's background. Tolstoy is best known for his two longest works, War and Peace, on the year of 1865 to 1869, and Anna Karenina on the year of 1875 to 77, which are commonly regarded as among the finest novels ever written. However, among of Tolstoy's shorter works, The Death of Ivan Ilyich on the year of 1886 is usually classed among the best examples of the novella. Especially during his last 3 decades, Tolstoy also achieved world's renown as a moral and religious teacher. His doctrine of non-resistance to evil had an important influence on Gandhi. In addition, some viewed Tolstoy as the embodiment of nature and pure vitality. Others saw him as the incarnation of the world's conscience. But for almost all who knew him or read his works, he was not just one of the greatest writers who ever lived, but a living symbol of the search for life's meaning. Okay, background of the work. God Sees the Truth But Waits is a short story by Russian author Leo Tolstoy. It was first published on the year of 1872. Was written in Russian language and translated by Almir Maude on the year of 1906. This story is about a man sent to prison for a murder he did not commit. Takes the form of a parable of forgiveness. It is considered one of the best and has its significance on Tolstoy's life as he was experiencing his journey looking for a meaning to the life, then finally found the religion as the most proper to get over the burdens of anxieties he suffered from. The story is a clear reflection of Tolstoy's religious concepts which he carried in that period. In addition, the story is centered about forgiveness, justice, and injustice. This story is a realistic fiction. It uses allegory for it implies the significance of the values that prevailed. So, character web. The main character of the story is Ivan Dmitrich Aksionov and his lover, Aksyonov's wife, and then the merchant whom he met, and then Makar Semyonich, and then the governor, and then the soldier and the police officer. Character analysis. So Ivan Dmitrich Aksionov was the protagonist, and according to the story, he was handsome, fair-haired, curly-headed fellow, full of fun and very fond of singing. When quite a young man, he had been given to drink and was riotous. It all had been stopped when he got married. He was also a wealthy merchant. And then the second bullet, Aksyonov's wife, caring and faithful wife of Aksionov. Third bullet, the merchant, fellow merchant of Aksionov, they put up in the same inn where he died. And the fourth bullet, the soldier and the police officer who interviewed Aksionov and arrested him. The fifth bullet, Makar Semyonich, is the antagonist. And according to the story, he is tall, strong man of 60 with a closely cropped gray beard, murderer and scoundrel. And lastly, the governor, the one who discovered the tunnel, interviewed Aksionov and higher authority which gives instructional justice inside the prison. Next slide, please. Okay, plot. So here is the introduction or the exposition of the story. Once there lived a young merchant named Ivan Dmitrich Aksionov with his family in the land of Vladimir, who in his younger days lived life to the fullest by experiencing all the material things until he got married. One summer, he planned to go to the Nezi fair, but his wife warned him that she had a bad dream of her husband. She dreamed about Ivan that he returned from the town with hair of gray. Ivan laughed as if he doesn't care and went on the fair. So the third bullet is the rising action of the story. He traveled halfway and met a merchant whom he spent the night drinking tea with and shared an adjoining room in the inn. Since Aksionov is not used to sleeping for long hours, he decided to wake up and continued his journey. Along the way of his journey, two soldiers in shroka stopped him and began asking questions. For the merchant whom he met halfway on his travel was found dead. Since all evidences of the crime are pointing Aksionov guilty, he was imprisoned. Learning the sad fate of Aksionov, his wife remembered her dream about Aksionov and was worried and even considered the thought of her husband being guilty. And so, ito yung the plot of the story. 26 years in prison made Aksionov a well-grounded and God-fearing man. In spite the fact that his family has completely forgotten him, he still serves as a grandpa to the other prisoner. Then came a new prisoner named Makar Semyonich. After months of knowing each other, Aksionov discovered that Makar is the one who killed the merchant whom he was told he murdered. He was furious with what he found out but did not speak or uttered a word about him. And then the following action of the story is one night, Aksionov heard some earth rolling under where the prisoners were sleeping. He went out and saw Makar. Makar told him not to tell a word about what he had witnessed or else he will kill him. When they were led out to work, a soldier noticed a prisoner took off some earth of plants and found the panel. Then they asked each of them who knew about this, but they denied, for they knew they will be killed before the one who did it, as Makar warned them. Finally, the governor asked Ivan, for he knew he was a just man. But then Ivan said it was not his right or his will, but God's to tell such things. Next slide, please. Next slide, please.
This is the next slide.
Okay, this is the denouement or the resolution of the story. Night fell and Makar
This is
went.
the next slide.
Okay. Night fell and Makar went to Ivan. He thanked him and felt sorry for what he had done to him a long time ago, that made Ivan suffer for all these years. He sobbed as well as Ivan and said that the Lord will forgive you. Makar said that he will confess to the governor so that Ivan would be sent free back to his hometown. Ivan did not want to go out of prison, for he has no family, neither home to back. Rather, he wanted for his lost hour to come. In spite of what they talked about, Makar Semyonich confessed his guilt. But when the order for Ivan Dmitrich Aksionov release came, he was already dead. So this is my part. The next reporter will be Fiona.
Good morning, everyone. Am I audible?
Yes,
Yes,
Fiona.
you are.
Thanks. So I will be reporting about the styles of the author. The point of view used here is the third-person omniscient point of view, or omniscient intrusive. The narrator seems to know all of the things happened there, even what was thought and felt by the character. The narrator tells rather than show the story, and the narrator reports the setting, the characters, and the plot. The conflicts. Man versus society. The first conflict presented in the story is when Ivan stops for a short break, and suddenly an officer with two soldiers appear and interrogate with him about the merchant who was found with his throat cut. Man versus man. Ivan confronts him with the authority again, while they discover a secret tunnel made for eloping. The governor interrogates with Ivan to tell his knowledge truthfully about the tunnel. Since Ivan knows the truth about the tunnel, he had been threatened to be killed by Makar if he says a word about it. Man versus self. Ivan gets to his final conflict with himself while Makar comes to him at night, confiding of being one who murdered the merchant and now seeks forgiveness from him. Ivan did not want to go out of prison, for he has no family, neither home to go back to. Rather, he waited for his last hour to come. The cultural implications. Law of man, that if someone had committed murder, they should be punished. Working inside the prison as punishment. Dreams that give warning signs on what may happen in the future. And devoting life towards God and keeping faith till the end. Symbols. Ivan Aksionov's gray hair. Aksionov's graying hair emerges as a vivid symbol of his suffering, highlighting not just his aging, but his corporal decay resulting from a system of justice and punishment. Ivan's home and his two shops, used to reflect the materialistic aspect of his character. And lastly, the prison symbolizes Ivan's grief and tragedy. The theme, injustice. Despite the fact that the case against Aksionov is neither particularly flimsy nor particularly convincing, government officials appear eager to pin the crime on him and assume his guilt, even without establishing motive or recovering the 20,000 rubles stolen from the merchant. Because the police have already determined that Aksionov is guilty, they make little effort to investigate other suspects. When his wife appeal to the Tsar is denied, Aksionov accepts that the injustice he is subjected to will be impossible to correct. He resigns himself to waiting for God to deliver the justice that man refuses or is unable to provide. Faith. When the world justice system fails, which is run by flawed humans, he places his trust in God's plan. He understands that only God knows the truth about him, and thus God is the only authority to which he should make an appeal. In prison, he transforms into a humble and God-fearing figure, spending his meagerness earning from bootmaking and a book about the lives of saints. Official and inmates alike respect him for his fairness in resolving disputes, as if he become a religious figure in his own right. Aksionov's faith in God's will is so strong that even after learning of the circumstances that led to his flight, he believes that he must have been evil to deserve the torturous life God has given him. Forgiveness. After Aksionov declines to inform Semenich tunnel digging, Semenich is so moved by Aksionov's mercy that he begs forgiveness from framing him. With some reluctance, Aksionov finally grants Semenich God's forgiveness, while also implying that, for all he knows, he himself may be 100 times worse than Semenich in God's eyes. The mere utterance of these words alleviates Aksionov's sufferings. The act of forgiveness is beneficial not only to Semenich, but also relieves Aksionovs of the burden of resenting Semenich and wishing his life had not turned out the way it did. Aksionovs is now free to go to the afterlife after forgiving Semenich. Fourth is acceptance. Despite the injustice he faces, Aksionovs attempts to accept his fate early in the story. He devotes himself to God and conducts himself humbly and meekly. The coincidence of Semenich being sent to the same Siberian prison, on the other hand, elicits Aksionov's suppressed feelings of resentment. Aksionov truly accepts his fate only after he learns to forgive Semenich, at which point he relinquishes his grip on both his sense of wrongdoing and his life. The implication of the title. It is conveyed through the title of the story, God Sees the Truth That Waits. This realization is summarized in the quote, "It seems that only God can know the truth, know the truth. It is to him alone we must appeal, and from him alone expect mercy." So the next reporter will be Maringin and Arculio.
Good morning, everyone. Am I audible?
Yes, you are.
Yes.
Okay. I am Jenny Emelingen, your rapporteur, and the literary piece that was assigned to me and together with Miss Arcolio is the An Enemy of the People by Henrik Ibsen. Next, please. Next slide, please. For the author's background, Henrik Johan Ibsen, also known as Henrik Ibsen, was born on March 20, 1828, 28 in Skien, Norway, and died on May 23, 1906 in Christiania, formerly Christiania, and now known as Oslo. He was a major Norwegian playwright of the late 19th century who introduced to the European stage a new order of moral analysis that was placed against a severely realistic middle class background and developed with an economy of action, penetrating dialogue, and rigorous thought. Um, his father his father's name is Nod Ibsen was a prosperous merchant. His mother is name is Marchen Altenberg, a painter. The fortunes of the family took a downturn when Ibsen was around 8 years old. Thus, Ibsen's childhood was marked by their poverty and the social ostracism they endured. When he was 15, Ibsen became a pharmacist apprentice and began to write plays. As one of the founders of modernism in theater, Ibsen is often referred to as the father of realism and one of the most influential playwrights of his time. Next, please. Background of the work. An Enemy of the People is a five-act drama by Henrik Ibsen published in 1882 as in Fakefendi and performed in 1883. Like all Ibsen's plays, An Enemy of the People was originally written in Norwegian and is full of untranslatable wordplay. It was translated by Rebecca Lenkiewicz. Additionally, this story is actually um, was based on several real and similar events. Um, a doctor named Dr. Misner, a medical officer at a health spa at Teplitz in Bohemia, now part of the Czech Republic in the 1830s, um, serve as a basis for the character of the doctor in this story. Next, please. For the character web, Dr. Thomas Stockman, the protagonist, and Mrs. Catherine Stockman, the protagonist's wife. Um, Martin Keel, the father-in-law of the protagonist. Peter Stockman, the mayor, and the brother of Dr. Thomas Stockman. Um, Petra Stockman, Petra Stockman, the daughter of Dr. Thomas Stockman and Mrs. Catherine Stockman, and Martin and Aleph Stockman is the sons. Captain Horster is the ally of the protagonist, and Aslaksen, Havstead, and Billing are the ally of the antagonist, which is Peter Stockman. Next, please. For the character analysis, Dr. Thomas Stockman, he is a practicing medical doctor, the medical officer of the town bats, and the brother of the mayor, who got him the job at the bats. Stockman is idealistic and excitable. For much of his life, he was destitute and lived in the countryside. Now he is happy to be fairly prosperous and living in a bustling town. Miss Catherine Stockman, she is Dr. Stockman's wife. She is loyal and practical and often encouraged her husband to think of his family when he is being rushed. Martin Keel is her adoptive father or grandfather, depending on the translation. Next is Petra Stockman, the daughter of Thomas and Catherine Stockman. Petra is an idealistic as her father. She is a hardworking teacher and she is frustrated that the law requires her to teach things she doesn't believe in. Next slide, please. Stockman. Aleph is Dr. Stockman, 13 years old son. He seems to be more conventional than his brother, noting when his brother says he would rather not work and become a Viking that he would then have to be a Hetan. Martin Stockman, one of the Stockman young sons. Martin gets in a fight at school after he hears another student call his dad a traitor. Peter Stackman, the mayor. Peter is Dr. Stackman's brother also. He is also chairman of the Bats Committee. He is a cautious but sometimes ruthless politician. Next slide, please. Hofstad. Hofstad is editor of the People's Herald, the town's leftist newspaper. Although slightly corrupt, he is at heart a political radical. Aslaksen is the newspaper printer because he lets the paper print on credit. He has a degree of editorial control. He is also the chairman of the Homeowners Association, which represents the town's small business class, the majority of voters. He also has great influence on the temperance society, and he is a lover of moderation. Billing, an assistant at the newspaper. He is radical like Hofstad, but he is also ambitious and plans to run for office. He is in some way courting Petra. This character were actually friends with the protagonist, which is Dr. Stuckman. Um, in and the first part, they were actually good and supported Dr. Stackman on his plan, but at the end, they were actually um began to oppose Dr. Stackman. Next slide, please. For the Captain Horster, a a ship captain who has little interest in local politics. Horster provides the hull for Dr. Stockman's speech, but he is far from his ship as a result. He was the remaining ally of Dr. Stockman in the play. Morton Keel, a rich old man. Keel owns several of the tanneries that Dr. Stagman implicates in his water pollution report. He is the adoptive father or grandfather, depending on on the translation, as I have said, of Mrs. Stockman, and his will assigns a good deal of wealth to her and her children. Next slide, please. The plot for the exposition. It is the last temptations of Dr. Stuckman. This play is actually um act 1 to 5, but we are assigned um to report the act 5, so I'm just gonna tell you the ano. The last temptation of Dr. Stackman. The next morning, the windows are smashed. Dr. Stackman is gathering the stones the mob has lobbed into the house. A letter arrives from the landlord informing the Stackmans that they have been evicted. And the act 1 on the on the beginning of the play, Dr. Stackman um unraveled a a revelation that there were actually and the water in the baths is actually contaminated, and then um everyone everyone supported him, including including his friends. But later on in the story, um when he was about to expose um the the bats, the contamination of the water in the bats, his brother, the mayor, um the mayor and her his remaining friends oppose him because of their self interest. Next is the landlord. The landlord writes that he doesn't like kicking the stockmans out, but that because of public opinion, he doesn't dare to let them stay. Um, after being um, being okay, yeah. Dr. Stackman became the enemy of the town, and the landlord kicked them out because everyone is against him na. Um, ala, okay. Balik pa yan. Okay. Next, Petra enters and she informs her parents that she's been fired from her teaching job. Captain Horster tells Dr. Stackman that they can't sail to America because he get fired too. Once again, Horster's boss didn't really want to fire him but dared not do anything else. Everyone else has put pressure on Stackman to recant, and he has resisted. After the whole town riots against him, the doctor is determined to leave them all behind and head to America. Several guests show up to tempt him before he makes his final decision. Peter, his brother, removes Dr. Stockman from his post as a doctor. The mayor, Aslaksen Havstad, and even his father-in-law, Martin Kiel, all come to try and manipulate him in some way. Next slide, please. However, the doctor refuses to abandon his quest. Unfortunately for the doctor's would-be tempers, their efforts only serve to reignite Dr. Stockman's passion. The doctor swears to stay in the town and fight the good fight. He himself feels unbeatably strong because he is standing along true to the right principles and not swayed by corrupt self-interest or public pressure. Dr. Sackman decides that the only way to truly help society is through education. Dr. Stackman vows to re-educate the world. Along with his daughter Petra's help, he will take the poor children of the town and enlighten them. He hopes that by educating the young, he can fight the power of the complacent majority. Mrs. Stockman worries that her husband will be driven from the town. However, she supported Dr. Stockman. In the end, Dr. Stockman says there's no way that's going to happen because he is the strongest man on earth. Mrs. Stockman seems to doubt her husband, but he reaffirms that he is the strongest man because strongest man is one who stands alone. That's all for my part. Miss Arcolio, please take over.
So, good morning everyone. Now I will continue to discuss the analysis of the play that was written by Henrik Ibsen titled The An Enemy of the People. So now we're on the styles of the author. The author used third person as the point of view of this play. So if you read this play, the format of this play is not in a narration type nor in a paragraph form, but rather it is a script. It is a script that where the characters are talking to each other. So it is like the conversation of the characters and not in a narration form of writing. So third person is the point of view that used by the author because he used the name of the characters accompanied by the lines that they are going to perform or they're going to say in the play. Next slide, please. After summarizing the play, I found two conflicts conflict in the play. The first one is man versus man and man versus society. There is a man versus man conflict since Dr. Stockman and Peter Stockman had a fight because Dr. Stockman released a statement or the facts about the harmful of the business operation that the government is operating. So the bat is like the swimming pool type of business where the tourist will go in. So because the bath is contaminated, it is harmful for the people and the environment as well. So he released the statement through the newspaper, and since Peter Stackman is his brother and the mayor of the town, Peter Stackman offered him the many agreements and money in order for him to withdraw his statements regarding to the business operation that he is writing. So since, excuse me for the noise. So since Dr. Stockman refuses to the agreement that he is was offering, Peter or the mayor have decided to abolish them or to let them leave the town for good. So that's the conflict in that play. The next slide, please. Man versus society. There is a conflict between a man and a society since Dr. Stackman fight the government or opposed to the government. So since he opposed to the government, the people he is fighting for also hate him. So this is the scenario where the man versus society is arising. He was hated by the people, and he's against to the government. So that's why it is called a conflict between a man and the society. The next slide, please. So here are the cultural implications. First, it reflects to the idea that a government that neglect and never listens makes the society ununited. So, in the play, Peter Stockman never listened to his brother because for him, business is the most important thing of all. So, he doesn't mind the harmful or the result that will going to appear, because for him business is the most important and to improve their town. So he never listened, and that's make the people hate Dr. Stockman because people believe that Dr. Stockman, the business they are operating is harmful because it was contaminated. So the next one is no freedom for public opinion. So in today's time, still exists because we don't have the real freedom to express our opinion. They are even innocent people who unjustly killed because they are expressing their opinion, or they are revealing facts about the government. So until now, it still exists in our community. The next one is fighting and standing on right principles for the sake of the majority. So Dr. Stackman has a characteristic that he is he is really standing on his principle for the sake of the majority. But unfortunately, the people that he's fighting for is also the people who hate him. So the next one is the idealistic characteristic of the doctor, an attitude to beliefs and of what is just morally right. So the attitude of the doctor is idealistic. For him, everything that be everything that should be on implemented in the community is always right and not to be harm others. And this kind of people are still exist nowadays in our community. There are people that they stick to their principle as long as it is right for them. So the next one is the strong relationship in the family amidst the hatred they've got from the society. So if there's one thing I've learned in the play, it is that the family is the only one who will stick with you, even though you are hated by many people because at the end of the play, even though Dr. Stockman has had not been heard by the government and hated by the people, his family is still supporting him to what he's fighting for. And for 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 Dr. Stockman, he is a loving father to his children. In fact, he did not he did not send his his children to the school because for him school is controlled by the cruel government. So instead, he is the one who is able to teach his children at home. So he did not want, or he don't want to live, or he don't want that his children will live in a cruel government. Next slide, please. So here's the symbols that I have found in the play. The first one is stone. Stone symbolizes hatred, which make the people shouted an enemy of people. So stone symbolizes hatred because stone is the thing that used by the people when they shout an enemy of people, and they throw stones to the windows of Dr. Stockman. So their hatred to Dr. Stockman is that they used stone in order for him to be hurt. The next one is newspaper symbolizes as the truth. Dr. Stockman expresses his feeling about the business operation that is harmful for the environment, and he warns the people. He also write information about what is the effect of contamination through the use of newspaper. So the truth was revealed through the newspapers. The next one is wolf. Wolf symbolizes the party leaders who are abusive to the ignorance of the people. So the wolf symbolizes as the government, okay? Because wolf is a predator and the people is the prey. The government is taking an advantage to the people since they are ignorant on what is the happening on that particular town. So they are abusing their powers because they are more powerful in the community. Next is money symbolizes as exchange of dignity. Money is the most symbol that was shown in the play because it is the thing that always presented to Dr. Stockman as an exchange to withdraw his statements, but fortunately Dr. Stockman still refuses and stick to his principles. Next slide, please. The theme of the play. The theme of the play. It encompasses the themes such as the tyranny of the majority, pride, power, and authority, duty, gender, freedom of expression, and hysteria. So these themes can be drawn in the play. First, the tyranny of the majority. Tyranny of the majority is the oppressive or the cruel rule of the government. So the rule of the government in this play is not good, and it is cruel that affects the majority. Next is pride. Pride because Dr. Stockman did not lower his standards to accept the agreements or the money, but rather he still stick to his principle as a good individual in the society and a doctor as well. Power and authority. The power of and authority is what used by the government in order for them to make everything they want in order to improve their community. Their power and authority is the thing that they used to take advantage the people of the town. Next is duty. Duty is what Dr. Stockman stick to his principle. He is a doctor. He knows what would be the effect of the contamination in their town. He is knowledgeable enough to know what is the result if the contamination still continue. So his duty is what makes him stick to his principle. He did not lower his standards to accept any amount of money because for him his duty is to warn or to protect people from having a health crisis. Gender because the author shows the equality to the both genders because the the role of the female or the women on the story is pivotal to the succession of this play. The next one is freedom of expression and hysteria. So the freedom of expression is what Dr. Stockman shows in the play where he released his opinion or his expression through the newspapers and the publication. Next slide, please. Implication of the title. In the play, An Enemy of the People, Act number 5, by Henrik Ibsen, shows the courageous and idealistic character of Dr. Stockman. His courageous spirit to protect the people from the party leaders who take the ignorance of the people for granted is what makes him hated by the people. By opposing to the government, tyranny, and expressing his freedom for opinion was seen as an enemy. The play pointing out that people who try to do the most for the world, who try to change things for the better, are often rejected at first by the majority. So the title, An Enemy of the People, is based on the plot of the play where Dr. Stockman opposed to the government and people seen this kind of behavior as an enemy of the government because when you oppose to the government, you are already a bad individual to the eyes of others. So though Dr. Stockman fights for the people, the irony of this play is that even he fights for the people, the majority or the people is the one who hated him. So that's the implication of the title of our report. So that's the end of our part.
Okay, good morning, everyone. We will talk all about the Chekhov, a father. Next, please. A father. Anton author's background. Anton Chekhov, in full Anton Pavlovich Chekhov, born on January 29 or January 17 in Old Style, 1860, Taganrog, Russia, died on July 14 to 15 or July 1 or 2 in Old Style again, 904, Badenweiler, Germany. Anton is a Russian playwright and master of the modern short history. He was a literary artist of laconic precision who probed below the surface of life, laying bare the secret motives of his characters. Chekhov described the Russian life of his time using a deceptively simple technique devoid of obtrusive literary devices, and he is regarded as the outstanding representative of the late 19th century Russian realist school. Next. Background of the work. A Father is a story about a tragic father. All Musatov find themselves lucky to have very dedicated children. Musatov is a drunkard and is constantly seeking out money from his sons, which they routinely give to him over and over again. Musatov is drunkenly relating the pride and appreciation he feels for all of his sons to one of his sons, Boris, while also admitting his own flaws. His children indulge their father continually, even though he doesn't deserve it for all the trouble he causes them and the fact that he has nothing to give them in return. So it is the story about the father of who he is and what he is. And what the complications of this story is that he is an alcoholic addict. So next, please. Character web. So old Musatov is a father. His four sons, Boris, Grigory, Grisha, Sasha, and his only daughter, Sonia. Next. Character analysis. Boris, a fair-haired young man with a melancholy mobile face, steady, hardworking. So Boris is the one who went to his house and just listened to all his rant. No, he just listened to his father's rant, and he just so patient. Grigory is the genius one. He can speak French, and he can even a great lawyer. Now Sonia is the only daughter. She's a sweet and jolly child. Gracia, patient and understanding. When his father went to his office with a rag state, with a drunken state. Now there's his office mate there with his with his supervisors, and then his father came into his office. He didn't even confuse why his father is there. He just smiled. He may pale for a moment, but he just smiled and introduced his father to his colleagues, even at that even at that state with even at that state in his father's. No, and then Grisha is a patient understanding. And Sasha is a generous one. After he got married, he went to his father to give money. And old Musatov is a father and a drunkard. Next. Plot. It was the first time the son and father had seen each other since Easter. He inquires about his son's well-being and asked him 10 rubles for his bills and vices. So it is the time that Morris went to his lodge, and in his state, he also drunk, and he asked for his son a money to pay, but again, he just didn't want to pay for it because he just want to buy for his vices, which is to drink alcohol, revealing all his lies and wrongdoings to his son. So, and the second one is he already reveals all the mistakes that he's done, and number three, admitting all his mistakes and feeling unworthy as a father. He already admitted because of his son's generosity, of his son's kindness, he feels unworthy of being a father to them. And that he is thankful for having a child that is very loving and understanding. Despite all his flaws, despite all his imperfections, his children are still loving, understanding towards him. He is a loving father, but due to his alcoholism and shame as a father, he refuses to demonstrate his love and instead chooses to separate his child from him because he was embarrassed as a father. He disgraced his family, so he don't want his child to be affected through him. Next one. Next, please. Styles of the author. So it is a third person point of view, optimism, and outside narrator characters by referring to their names or by the third person pronouns he or she or they. The author knows everything in the story, even the mind of the character. Next. Conflict man versus himself. So as we can read in the story, the father Musatov has a conflict between about himself, about his addiction, about his flaws, about his imperfection, about him being not worthy to his child. That next one. Cultural implications, alcoholism. Why kana in the story, the father has an alcoholism addict. Now he is an addict. No, he is an addict to alcohol. And then, as we all know, in the culture, some mostly of the people are more into drinks. No, without knowing what its affect their lives. Passionate love. Now the children still love their father despite everything that is happening to their father. Next, symbols. Boots. It is said that your boots are too small because your heart is too big, meaning a generous thoughtfulness. So Boris here is very generous to his father. He knows that his father are lack of things, so he gave it to him. It is a sign of his love to his father that without that everything is okay. Next, please. Saan to? Okay, lover covers flows the theme. So as we all know, even in the even if even in the oh my god, even if they're in their young states, their father is already a drunkard. But then they always wait for their father on the table to eat. They never ate without their father. So despite everything that their father done to them since their childhood until to their youth, until to their being an adult, everything the flows that their father done to them, they still love them. They still love him despite everything. That's why love cover flows. It is the greatest thing that you can offer to someone. Love can change someone's life. Love can change someone's perspective. Next, please. Implication of the title. The title refers to a father with numerous flaws and shortcomings. But despite this, all he wants is love and attention. He still wishes for the best for his children and care for their reputation. That no matter who you are, no matter what you are, it is still your child and it is still your father. So no, so whatever the circumstances, whatever the flows that is happening between you two, you are still a family. So that's it for my report. I will pass on to the next reporter.
Thank you, Ms. McKeering. Good morning, everyone. Am I audible?
Yes, Zil.
Yes, you are.
Thank you. Okay. This time we will be tackling about a short peasant story by a Norwegian writer, Mr. Bjørnson. It is entitled The Father. The author's background. Bjørnstjerne Martinus Bjørnson was born on December 8, 1832 in Norway and died on April 26, 1910 in Paris, France. He's a person. He is a poet, a journalist, a novelist, an editor, a theater director, and that is also why he is one of the most prominent public figures in Norway. Together with Henrik Ibsen, Alexander Kielland, and Jonas Lee. And actually, he is a friend of Henrik Ibsen. They attended the same college preparatory school and have founded a Norwegian Society for Theater, Music, and Language. They're both active in theater circles. And Bjørnson was awarded with the Nobel Prize for Literature in 1903. As a matter of fact, he is the one who wrote the Norwegian national anthem. It is his poem entitled Jeg elsker det landet, which means, yes, we love this land. Next slide, please. Authors, ayon. Bjørnson, the son of a pastor, grew up in the small farming community of Romsdalen, which later became the scene of his country novels. From the start, his writing was intent. He sought to stimulate national pride in Norway's history and achievements and to present ideals. For the first 15 years of his literary career, he drew his inspiration from the sagas and from his knowledge of contemporary rural Norway. He exploited these two fields in what he described as his system of crop rotation, saga material was turned into plays, contemporary material into novels or peasant tales. Both stressed those links that bound the new Norway to the old. Both served to raise the national's moral. So his works are marked by didactic intent, which means his work conveys moral observations and intended to teach moral lessons. Next slide, please. Okay. Background of the work. Fatherin, or The Father, is a short story published in 1860 by the Norwegian writer Brinsani Bjørnson in his collection in Småstek here, Small Pieces. It is one of his peasant stories. The theme is related to the Lidelsens High School College of Suffering, a concept that Bjørnson developed when he read texts by the German preacher Ludwig Fokker in the summer of 1859. Bjørnson's story, The Father, was originally written in Norwegian. The story is set in contemporary rural Norway, and its original audience was primarily Christian in belief and Norwegian in culture. Next slide, please. The character web. The characters in this story are the priest, Thord, Gudmund, Finn, and Karen, who all belong to the same parish. On the web, we could notice that the priest is the head of the parish, while Gudmund and Thord are both fathers. Thord has a son named Finn, Gudmund has a daughter named Karen. In the web, I placed a broken line here between Finn and Karen because they were not able to pursue their marriage because a tragedy happened, but they remained engaged. So next slide, please. The character analysis. Thord Overalls, the protagonist of the story, is the father of Finn. He is the wealthiest and most influential person in the parish. He has a tall and earnest appearance, and his character can often be described as arrogant and proud, as he wants honor and expects special treatment for himself and his son, Finn. Moreover, he eventually became humble, generous, and a changed man in the last part of the story. He shows it son by himself. If his son throughout this story stand first in the confirmation, and that the priest published the bans for his son's marriage. Yet later, when his son died, he became kind, thoughtful, and generous when he sold his farm and donated the money to the poor. The priest is a wise and intuitive man and the religious leader of the community. He often uses silence to convey his thoughts. The priest represented someone who bows down or respects to someone who has authority. Thord was a wealthiest man, and when he came to the priest for asking favor, he also paid the priest, and the priest himself did everything Thord asked him. The priest is also dedicated to his duties. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. Oh. Next slide, yan.
Muna.
Ayun. Finn Overas, who was named after his grandfather or Thord's father. He is the only child of Thord, and he was about to marry the richest girl in their parish. So about lang yun. Karen Storliden, but ended tragic as he lost his life on his way to make wedding arrangements to Storliden's family. Karen Storliden is advised, please. Next is the plot. Thord Overas is a rich and prosperous farmer, one of the most powerful men in his community. One day, he stands in the priest's office and says he wants his son, Finn, who was named after his father, to be baptized. The baptism is scheduled for the coming Saturday at 12 o'clock. Since this is not our Sunday, which means that Finn will be baptized alone, or the baptismal will be conducted solely for him. 16 years later, Thord stands once more in the priest's study. The priest is astonished upon seeing Thord to have no change at all, and Thord replies that it is because he has no troubles. Thord asks to have his son confirmed tomorrow, and he will not pay the priest until he makes sure that his son is first in line. 8 years go by, and Thord stands in the priest's office for the third time, now with several other men from the village. Finn is to marry Karen Sorlid, the village richest girl, and so he comes to request for the banns be published. After the arrangement, he pays $3, although the priest says he should receive only one. Bans are announcements for marriage. While fixing his eyes on him, Thord would always say that he would have nothing else. Sige. One day, they are out rowing, Finn and Thord, across the lake to Sturlydin to make arrangements for the wedding, and then the son falls out of the boat, goes stiff, and drowns. The father looks for 3 days and 3 nights for his dead son. For 3 days and 3 nights, people saw the father rowing round and round the spot without taking either food or sleep. He was dragging the lake for the body of his son. On the morning of the third day, he finds his son's body and carries him in his arms up the slopes back to his farm. An entire year passes. One autumn evening, the priest hears someone walking outside the front door, and there stands Thord. This time, the priest could barely recognize Thord because he becomes tall and thin man with bowed form and white hair. Thord says he has sold his farm and he wants to donate half the money to the poor as a grant and legacy in his son's name. Finally, the priest gently asks Thord what he would be proposing to do in the meantime, and Thord replies as something better. The priest, with his fixed eyes on Thord, slowly and softly says, "I think your son has at last brought you a true blessing." A true blessing that the priest indicates here is the changes happened to Thord's character after his son's death. He became a changed man. Next slide, po, please. The styles of the author. Point of view is third person. The story is told by an impartial narrator in a simple chronological form. So the point of view is third person objective. Therefore, readers can come to their own conclusions about emotions and meanings based on the facts and the dialogue, or in some cases, just like what the priest done, is to have the silence. Conflict. The conflict in this story is man versus himself. There is the inner struggle of the main character, Thord, versus himself, as the protagonist must face a harsh truth about his son's death and act accordingly. Next slide, please. The next one is the cultural implications. Christian practices such as baptismal, confirmation, and publishing of the banns or announcing a wedding can be seen in the story. Next is that a priest performs important duties to the life of Christian peasants belonging in his parish. And the other one is that donations to the poor could be done through the church or the parish, just like what Thord did. He donated it through the parish. Next slide, please. Symbols. A father. A father represents dominance, provision, and bold behaviors. As what we have noticed in the story, Thord provided the needs of his son. He dominated and supervised him without even Finn asking for it. The priest, as the father in the parish, also showed how he carries the duty of governing or dominating the parish and provided need of his members, especially how he granted every request of Thord. The next one is a child which symbolizes to be a blessing to the family. Just like how Finn became a blessing to Thord. In the story, just like what I have said earlier, a child became a true blessing to Thord when he finally changed his character after his son's death. The last one is number 3. which has a special significance. The number 3 is important in Christian symbolism because of the Trinity: God, Jesus Christ, and the Holy Spirit. Christ performed 3 functions while on earth, namely prophet, priest, and the king. He rose from his grave on the 3rd day. In addition, the disciple, Peter, fearing for his life, denied Christ 3 times that he knew Christ. There are many other instances in which 3 is a number with special significance. In the story, Thord came to the priest to ask favor on his son's behalf. He laid $3 to the priest instead of just $1, and he searched for his son's dead body for 3 days and 3 nights. Throughout the first 3 parts of the story, Thord is prideful and visits the priest only to ask for favor, never confessing his sins and never even acknowledging the priest's role in religion. Therefore, we as readers may have interpreted the death of Thord's sons as some of divine punishment or retribution. Next slide, please. The theme. I can't find the theme. The importance. Themes. The importance of religion and humility in one's life. The relative lack of importance of wealth when compared to the love for and quality time spent with one's family. A loss that can change to positive changes. The central theme. Okay, next slide. Yeah. The central theme, according to the ending, is apparently the importance of religion in one's life and how it is necessary for one to become a humble servant of a higher power and a generous part of one's community. A secondary theme is the relative lack of importance that money has in one's life compared to the love for one's family and neighbors. These themes are often interrelated because Lord usually pays to him favors rather than developing a genuine relationship between himself and the priest, or between himself and his son for that matter. Next slide, please. Another theme could be that people do not understand themselves very well, in the sense that Thord is his own enemy without him realizing it. After he asks for and receives 3 favors for his son, he says to the priest, I am true with him, indicating that Thord believes that he has done his most important duties as a father by means of his wealth and social influence. Soon afterward, of course, his son dies, and the impact on Thord is huge and life-changing. The implication of the title. The father could refer to the priest, to Thord, or to the vital importance of fathers, especially since Thord's name names his son Finn after his own father. The father could also refer to God, who, according to Christian beliefs, offers love and guidance. At the end, we can see that Thord has taken a long time to understand the impact of his greed and pride on his relationship, or lack thereof, with his son, his community, and his religion. Ironically, the death of his son causes him to comprehend fully what being a father means and to get in touch with his true emotional and social needs. So that's all for my part. I hope I made everything clear, and I hope you learned something. Thank you, and let me turn the mic to the next presenter, Ms. Martelino.
So, good morning, everyone. My report will be Pirandello War. Author's background. Luigi Pirandello, an Italian playwright, novelist, and short story writer, winner of the 1934 Nobel Peace Prize, with his invention of the theater within the theater, in the play Sei personaggi in cerca di autore, or 1921 Six Characters in Search of an Author, he became an important innovator in modern drama. Luigi Pirandello is best known as a dramatist. He himself felt that his short stories, of which he wrote more than 200, would be his primary claim to artistic fame. Background of the work: War, by Luigi Pirandello, focuses on the real problems of ordinary people, which makes this story relatable to realism. Realism is present in the story because the people are truly grieving about their boys going off the front. It supported Italy's involvement in World War I, in which his son fought and was captured by enemy forces. Perhaps in writing War, Pirandello was trying to work through his work through his own complex emotions regarding his son and the cause of which he was fighting. The character web. This is the character web in the said story. They are all passengers on the train, and all of them have loved ones who are on the front in the war. This includes the old woman, the fat man, the husband and the wife, passengers, and the unnamed passengers. Character analysis. The wife. She was the mother who grieved about her son's leaving. The husband. He is the father of the only son who is sent to war. He is one of the passengers of the last train who relates back of what the other passengers talking. The fat man. He was one he was the one who stands up and makes the point that their sons, including his, will die happy because they were fighting for the love of their country, and they died with dignity and in flame. He is so strong and who's proud of his son. The old woman. She was one of the passengers in the train who deep mourning and is so distressed and maladroit that she had to be helped into the carriage by the other passengers. The unnamed passengers. All the passengers on the train that have one or more loved ones on the front in the war. Plot. A couple whose son had been sent to war, they board a train to leave Rome, the departure spot for their sons and young men going off war. All the passengers on the train have one or more loved ones on the front in the war. The couple who boards the last train has their one and only son in war. The wife is grieving the most. The other passengers ask what is the problem, only to be able to relate to her sadness. One woman speaks up and says that her son had left for the front the first day of war, was sent back twice because of injuries, and was sent back yet again. Another woman stands up and adds in that she has two sons and three nephews at the front. Then the original husband relates back that it was their one and only son. The starts the starts of the conversation between the passengers about the love for their sons and the suffering one
Excuse
may
me,
have.
Miss Martelino.
Yes, ma'am.
I have to cut you off because it's almost time, and I know I don't want you to be late to your next class. So we will continue your part until they'll finish because the two of you, Miss Martillo, Miss Makiring, are going to present. May I ask if Miss Mas Maravilla was able to present kanina?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Also next meeting, I need to hear from you again because the entire time for your presentation, I was cut off. I got disconnected. So I did not hear even a bit of your presentation. So you will present again, Miss Maravilla, for our next meeting. So before anything else, I would like to end, appreciation for Ms. Silvia Magtulis for trying to open her camera while having presentation, because it really makes a difference if we can see you presenting. And I hope even if you just read your notes, I do not mind, because there's a different impact once we can see you than just hear your voice and see your picture. So I hope others by next meeting will be inspired by Ms. Luvia that to open their camera while presenting. So, okay, you may now stop screen sharing. So, thank you, Group 1, for the partial presentation. I know there are still those, marami pang ano, there are still those who are going to join us. Excuse me. So please, you may now open your camera for class picture. Okay, wait. Sige. Wait lang ha. Okay, so, yes. So again, thank you for today. Should in case I might fail to what? I would fail to call in those who did not present today. So please remind me for next meeting. So meaning next meeting, we will start earlier. And also I wish to say thank you for the cooperation you have done during our student teachers demonstration teaching. They were happy with the result that even if we are having it online, but you tried your best to be able to interact, diba? It would have been different setting if we have seen each other face to face, but then this is the best medium that